It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome to Jill on Money. How you doing? So delighted you are joining us. This is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. Spring has sprung. Hopefully, by now, it really has sprung. It was a rough beginning of the spring. But now, I know, we're all sort of looking up, thinking it's a possibility. Things could be actually coming that would maybe encourage us to believe that we will have a summer. Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. I mean, I hate to be one of those boring people. Like, it is incredibly boring to talk about weather or traffic. If you ever go to a dinner party and someone's sitting next to you and they talk about the weather or traffic, go move your seat. Those are the worst topics ever. So boring. Do you ever find that, like, when you talk to people about, like, what you do, you can tell very quickly whether or not they're interested? So I was recently at a party and I said to somebody, I work in news, in radio. And what do? I cover business and finance. And the guy literally, like, turned around and was like, oh, okay, bye. All right. Well, hey, I love what I do. So, this is the program that takes the mystery of your financial life. So you've got to give us a holler to let us know what is going on. Send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Let's start the show with Shane, who's calling from Iowa. Shane just inherited $500,000.
The brokerage of where it's at, the fees are pretty high, and I'm trying to figure out what the best way to go about, whether moving it or trying to find some different fees or some different funds to put them in.
Okay. Let's figure out, like, what's going on in your life. I'm sorry that someone died and that this is how you got the money. So that's number one. But it is a lot of money. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Shane. How old are you?
42.
And are you single or married?
Married.
How old is your spouse?
She is 42 as well.
Okay. Kids?
3.
Oh, how old?
18.
Oh,
In college now.
Nice.
11 and 8.
This was a trick question to see if you knew how old your kids were. Okay. And you're working now?
Correct.
And what do you do?
I work as a computer programmer.
Oh, cool. And is your wife at home working both? What's she up?
She works as well.
And what does she do?
She's a instructor.
Okay. And how much is your total income, basically?
Basically, probably 170.
That's great. And is that like plenty of money for you? Do you feel flush with that? How's that income for you?
It covers everything.
Mm-hmm. Because, everyone here in New York, we think like, oh, if I lived in Iowa, my 170 would go a lot farther. So tell us how much farther it would go. Do you own a home?
Correct. Yep.
How much is that? How much is the house worth?
Probably $230.
Mortgage?
Yeah, 145 left.
Oh, okay, good. And how about money in the bank, like what I would call the old emergency reserve fund?
We have probably, let's say, 8, 9, maybe about 10 months of emergency fund.
Okay, that's great. That's great. In your mind, how have you guys navigated the college stuff? You said you have one kid who's in college right now. State school, private school, are they paying? Are you paying? Did you save money for education? What's the game plan there?
He's at state school, and he got a lot of academic scholarships, so we're just kind of paying that.
Out of cash flow?
Out of cash flow, correct.
What about the other two? Are they as smart? No, just kidding. I mean, I shouldn't say that. That's a terrible thing to say. But what do you think about the other two? What do you think will happen
We're pretty
there?
fortunate there. Are the grandparents, actually, there's probably 80 apiece.
Ooh.
In 529s for them.
I love those grandparents. Okay. So how much money do you have in retirement right now, currently? Like, forgetting about the $500,000 inheritance. What's been
we're
saved?
about 700.
Fantastic. If you're looking at the 700, generally speaking, I know you're subject to whatever the choices are in your plans, but what do you say the split is right now between stocks, bonds, cash? How are you investing right now?
Right now, with those two, or with the 401k stuff, it's almost, I'd say, 100% stocks.
What? Come on, are you kidding me?
That's why I'm trying to make sure that.
Hold on. Oh, wait a second. I had to take a deep breath on that. That's totally crazy. We got to reallocate. Are you familiar with like the different choices in your 401k?
Yes.
Okay. Could you invest in something else besides stocks and see really good returns? The answer is yes. So what I want to know is, in your plans, what other choices do you have? Do you have index funds? Do you have bond funds? What's in your plan that you're using?
Yeah, I got index funds, bond funds, a stable fund, balanced fund.
Okay. At age 42, when you're kind of, I'm not saying you're retiring tomorrow, but you probably want to retire in the next 20 years or so. You have to start thinking differently, right?
Correct.
And so when would you target retirement in your mind?
We're thinking if things work out correctly or as we wish, our goal is at 55.
Ooh, so so you're within 13 years, and that means we definitely have to change your allocation.
Correct.
Okay. So I think that you want to stick to the index funds. If you are kind of scared of the bond market in general, maybe you would use the stable value instead of a bond index fund. And then I think that if you at least I kind of would feel better if you were even if you were super aggressive today and you were 70-30. That's plenty aggressive when you've got 13 years to go. And then slowly as you approach, almost like every year, you kind of want to start shifting so that by the time you're 55, you can have a little bit less risk on the table. Will you receive a pension at retirement?
I will, yes.
Okay. So, this money, you're not going to need all of it immediately, but you'd like to have access to it, I'm sure. For this $500,000 inheritance, I think there are basically two choices. You could choose to do it yourself, right? You can create your own allocation, probably a 70-30 allocation, and you can use really cheap index funds. And by doing that, you are going to retain more of the money yourself because you're not giving fees away to someone else. I would be careful not to have too much risk on the table as you approach retirement. But, you're in very good shape financially. There's no doubt about it. Bottom line, you'll keep your expenses low, but you already know that, right?
So right now where the brokerage, where the inheritance RA is at, it does have high fund fees. One of my questions was, would you just kind of bite the bullet and move it now, or would you?
Yeah, goodbye. Absolutely, I would do it, and I would bite the bullet because every day you stay there, that brokerage firm is making money off of you that you could be making yourself. Okay, we'll get back to your questions when we return. While we're in the break, why don't you hop onto the website, JillOnMoney.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. Mark is scouring through all the best stuff of the week, and every Friday sending out a cool newsletter, kind of an in case you missed it. Takes 10 minutes to go through the whole thing. That's it. All right, JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You're back with Jill on Money. I know everyone wants to inherit $500,000, right? But it doesn't happen for everyone. It's funny, with the new estate law in effect, you might think there are all these stories about how, estate attorneys are going to go out of business. Just because you're not going to pay estate taxes does not actually mean that you shouldn't be preparing a will and even considering a trust. A trust is not just for estate tax purposes. It's essentially for control. So it is a way that you can control or better control the disposition of your assets. And by the way, there's still plenty of states that actually levy an estate tax. So be sure to check on that. I'm always amazed at how really smart people consistently make one of the dumbest blunders I know, and that is that they don't have a will. Hey, Mark, do you have a will? He does now. What was the prompting of it? The buying of the real estate? And you decided you were really going to stick with this woman forever-ish? And he says, and we have some decent money. Did you cut out your nieces and nephews now, or have you just sort of fly all over to her, or what did you decide? A little bit of everything? Mark, I said to someone yesterday who asked me about how Mark was doing, I said, he is really happy. It's just very odd. Mark is a curmudgeon, and he is now in love and happy. You see, ladies and gentlemen, it can happen to you too. Anyway, you should do a will, should prepare it. I know it costs a little bit of money. I know that you may want to, often we'll get that question, hey, should I just do it online? No, it's really important. The amount of time that most people spend, let's say, planning a vacation or deciding where to go to dinner and getting a reservation versus actually doing these very important tasks associated with your financial life is truly remarkable. So we do encourage you to do that. It is still Financial Literacy Month, April, the whole month is. So please do that and be thoughtful. And I know it can be hard sometimes, but, a lot of decisions in life are hard. And if you can't, oftentimes people say, I can't decide who to leave my kids to. Well, pick somebody. It doesn't have to be perfect. Don't let your state of residence decide where your kids go. Okay? All right. Now, if you've got a financial question, we'd love to get you on the air. Send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Right now, we're talking to Alison from Ohio. Tell me what's on your mind and how I can help you out.
So my question pertains to retirement, and I often hear, max out your retirement benefits, and I feel lucky that I have so many options at my disposal. I work for a place that requires that I put 10% of my income into retirement, and they put 13% of my income.
Ooh, I love that. That's nice.
Yes, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, for the first time, I maxed out my Roth IRA contributions.
So you're putting 10% into your retirement plan from work, and then $5,500. How old are you?
29.
You're putting 10% of your salary plus $5,500 into your Roth?
Yes.
You are awesome. Okay. How much money do you make?
I only make $40,000 a year.
How are you such a good saver?
I don't know.
Did you learn that from your parents? I mean, that's really awesome.
Yeah, my parents are great financial models and lived below their means and set me up for success. I don't have any student debt because I went to school on scholarship, and my car's paid off, so what else am I going to do with my money?
That's fantastic. Okay, so you're putting a bunch of money away. Now tell me more. What else is going on?
So my employer also offers the option of having a 403B or a 457.
Okay.
Where you can put additional pre-tax dollars into either of those accounts.
Right. But so the 10% that you say you're putting away for retirement, is that part of a pension plan? Do you work for a municipality?
I work at a place that does offer a pension plan, but I chose the alternative retirement plan. So it's going into an account that I have control of.
So wait a second. I don't get it. The 10% that you're putting in, what is that going into? Is that in because normally what they would do is they would say, if you don't do a pension plan, you could do a 403B or a 457, but that's not what the first 10% that you described is going into?
No, it's going into an alternative retirement plan is what they call it.
Okay.
And
interesting.
I chose one of the providers, and it's going into low-cost index funds.
Okay, perfect. All right. So now you could potentially put money into a 403B or a 457.
Correct.
Okay.
Or both.
Or both, right. Which fabulous. Just do it all. How much more money do you have that's available to you that you think you could contribute?
I think that I could potentially put around $6,000 more in retirement.
Okay. any other big bills that are coming up? Like, are you saving up for a house? Do you own a house? Do you have a repair? Is anything going on?
So I didn't invest in my early 20s, so I just had a big chunk in my savings account, and I used that money as a down payment for a house
Fabulous.
about 2 years ago.
That's great. And you've got a house, and what kind of mortgage?
I have a fixed-rate 20-year mortgage at 3.875%, I think.
Girl, you're golden. Okay. Anything that you have to do in the house, any big bill that's coming up. In other words, is there a reason why that $6,000 shouldn't get tied up into retirement and should be kept as free cash flow to, I don't know what, buy a car?
I mean, my car isn't young, but I have $7,000 in emergency savings, so hypothetically I could use part of that as a down payment for a car.
Yeah, I would keep the emergency savings as an emergency. But That said, how old's the car?
A little over 10 years, maybe 12 years.
Uh-oh. Are you the kind of person who wants to buy a car in cash and not have any debt? Because you sound like that kind of person.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was able to get a relatively low interest rate loan, I would be okay with that.
So here's my thought. You have kids or anything? You got married? Do you have a significant other? What's going on for you personally?
I live with my significant other, and we will probably get married in the next couple of years.
Oh, that's so nice. That made me smile. Okay. And sig other is okay financially?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So my thought here is that you've done a very good job of saving. I tell you what, I think I would just keep doing what you're doing in terms of putting your 10% into the alternative retirement plan, $5,500 into your Roth. I might keep that extra $6,000 and build up your emergency reserve and maybe start to do the car thing sooner rather than later. And here's why. I think that basically, if you're kind of projecting out into the future, 10-year-old car, you're probably more likely to need a car in the next year or so. And again, maybe you wouldn't, but maybe it's time to start looking. Right now, interest rates are still really low. If you did need an auto loan, now would be a pretty good time to start shopping for one, to find one of these 2.9% auto loans before interest rates start to rise more significantly. So I'm less concerned about your retirement just because you're such a good saver. And I'm more concerned with hey, you know what? You're going to have this $6,000 extra. You might need to tap that $6,000. So I don't think I would actually put it in retirement. Tell me, if in a year from now, you got the car, you're done, you got a little raise, you and the significant other living together, saving more money, and you've got freed up cash flow, then I might put money into either the 403B or the 457. But I don't want you to feel completely compelled because remember, you're young. And you do need to have some liquidity just in case something goes on. And I think the car is the next big thing for you.
Okay.
Make sense?
I think that makes sense.
You're fantastic. Good luck. And you know what? Mark and I would like an invitation to the wedding whenever that happens, okay?
Oh, okay.
All right.
Will do.
Put us on the list. Thanks. We give good gifts. That's the best part about inviting us.
Oh, nice.
Okay. We'll be back in just a moment. While you are waiting, go check out JillOnMoney.com, where we've got all of our latest articles, TV segments, and old radio shows that you might want to check out. JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back with Jill on Money, and if you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. That is our email address. Be sure to give us lots of details about what's going on in your life. That would be helpful. All right. Let me just think about a few things that I want to get off my chest right now. First of all, the college and high school graduation season is coming up. And again, we are still in our month of April, which is Financial Literacy Month. So I am going to encourage you all to use this occasion of graduation to have some conversations with your kids about money. Now, please do note that I am not a parent, so when I give you parenting advice, you might roll your eyes. I have many opinions about parenting because I'm not a parent. But it is a good time to break the ice on some issues. If there is a college graduation, maybe you really want to sit down with your kid and talk about, how they plan to manage their lives in this next phase financially. For high school, I think a great time before your kids go off to college to really have conversations about how you're going to help them out. Maybe, the decisions are being made around financial aid, that's for sure. But how about getting the kids used to managing their money by saying, I'm going to send you a certain amount of money every month. And now, let's put a budget together and look at what expenses you have coming up. But it's an icebreaker time. And even if it's just the end of the school year and, you're really talking about high school kids who are getting summer jobs, these are just moments. They're moments in time that give you an opportunity to actually discuss the matters that I think are pretty important. In our business, we call that a news peg. Like we use something in the news to actually tell you to eat your vegetables, that do your financial stuff. So these events can be wonderful opportunities to actually have conversations that you've been meaning to have for a long time. See if that's something you can try that on and see if it works for you. And you should also be clear that, if you need help, give us a call or give us a shout. One way or the other, get in touch with us. If you want to know what is important, what kind of information is important to actually provide to the kids, let us know. All right now we're going to take a call. It is Jesse who's on the line from Missouri.
Oh, greetings. I have employed with a company for 20 years and had a 401k with them the whole time. And recently moved to another company who also has a 401k. And I just cracked 50 a couple of years ago, and I'm thinking perhaps I should go a different way rather than moving my previous 401k into my new 401k. I'm, thinking more about the costs associated with their management and such.
Okay.
But I really don't know where else to go with it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about so the money currently in the current 401k, what is the company that holds that? Not the company you worked for, but the investment management company. What's in the old 401k? Who runs that?
Oh, goodness. I wish I had that in front of me. Is it still, it used to be Evergreen?
Okay. Okay. That's fine. Okay. And what about the new plan? Do you know who manages the new plan?
No. We're just looking into that now.
Okay. Here's what you want to look at. I mean, first of all, you're right to be very focused on fees because obviously every dollar that you pay to an investment management company is a dollar that you're not making. So if you've got an old plan and it sounds like it might be in some managed mutual funds, you could have an opportunity to save some money, right? So and you said how much money is in there about right now?
A little over 110.
Okay, so that's like real money. And you might say, well, okay, what could I do with it? I could either leave it where it is, I could move it into my new plan, or I could move it into a rollover IRA. So basically the money comes out of the 401k. It stays as a tax-deferred vehicle. It's into a rollover, and you can put whatever you want in it in terms of investments. Now, the good news is that you're probably not going to leave it where it is, but either route of the putting the money in your new employer's plan or a rollover IRA is probably going to be cheap for you because we're going to figure out a way to get you super inexpensive index funds. So what I want you to be able to do is when you're looking at the new plan, and you can give us a call back or shoot us an email, I want you to send me a copy of the plan choices you have. Because if you're in a big 401k plan and there's a bunch of index funds that are available to you in that plan, what you may want to do is just roll from the old 401k into the new 401k. And the beauty of that is, of course, that it's easier to keep track of. You're already contributing to that plan. You can manage it pretty easily, right? It's not a big deal. And as long as you're using index funds in the new plan, you're going to be safe territory in terms of keeping your expenses down. Now,
Very familiar.
Okay, now let's just pretend you call me up in a week and you say, I don't have that kind of plan. I have a plan with very expensive mutual funds. It looks like they're, 1%, 1.5% in a given year. What are your alternatives? Then we start talking about an IRA rollover. And the cool thing about a rollover is, like I said, you can move it anywhere you want. You can move it to a big no-load mutual fund company. Whatever you choose to do with that rollover, the same discipline applies. You are looking to find a very cheap way of investing. Now, look, a big, huge retirement plan could have fees of, let's say, about 0.75% to 1% a year. But when you're talking about low-cost index funds or a robo-advisor, you're talking about fees of less than 0.25% a year. So, again, it totally depends on what your options are. And like I said, I don't think you're going to go wrong either way. It's just that when we have more information, I think we can make a better decision for you. Does that make sense?
Sure. Absolutely.
All right. Well, then you owe me a call, okay?
Sounds great. I'll give you a call back next week early.
Okay, we will be right back. But while we're gone, hey, you know what? Maybe you go check out where you can find a CFP professional. Go to letsmakeaplan.org. That's the CFP board website. Check that out for some names. All right? Jill on Money. Shoot us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger. Have a question? Call or email anytime. 855-411-JILL or ask Jill at jillonmoney.com.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we would love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill at jillonmoney.com. And before we went to the break, I was talking about, having these conversations with your kids. Friend of the show, Beth, who we love, Beth Kobliner, created something called Money as You Grow on behalf of the White House. And now the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has taken all of Beth Kobliner's great work and put it into a resource that's fantastic. So it literally says, resources for parents and caregivers. Children learn from watching you earn, shop, save, and borrow. You're the top influence on their financial lives. You don't need to be a money expert to help them start out strong. So it's so cool. Anyway, go to consumerfinance.gov/consumer-tools/money as you grow. Mark, let's put this in the show notes. You're hating me, aren't you, right now? I'll send it to you. Don't worry. But it's so cool because it literally breaks it down based on how old your kids are. So it says, when your kids are young, 3 to 5, when they're 6 to 12, when they're 13 to 21. It's so great. So again, Money as You Grow was essentially created out of President Obama's Advisory Council on Financial Capability. That was, and Beth Kobliner was actually part of it, and she really developed the whole thing. So it's so cool. And so you should check it out because that is one way you can break the ice. All right, let's get to a question from you. Here's from Michael. Is it better to invest in paying off my home and not contribute to my 401k? My home has equity of about $1.6 million. I owe $725,000. My 401k plan is $625,000. My wife has $500,000. I'm thinking of paying more towards my principal than investing in my 401k. What's your thoughts? Mark, do you have a guess at what my thought is? you want to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down on that? Like 2 thumbs down. That's about right. I don't like that idea. You own this house. It's great. Fine. You have a lot of equity in it already. But you didn't mention your rate on your mortgage, but I'm just going to guess that probably it's a lowish rate if you've gotten it any time in the last, 3, 4, 5 years. Look, you need liquidity as you get older. And when you pay off the mortgage to your house, you lose liquidity. You don't have those funds available. So while it may sound like you have a lot of money, you might say, oh, I got over $1 million saved. I don't know. It's not that much. And you already have a bunch of equity in your house. Unless your $725,000 mortgage is like an 8 or 9% loan, then I would say, no, skip it. Don't do it. Michael, don't do it. Do not. If you have more questions about this, I'm happy to follow up with you. But I don't think that's a no. That really is a no. Okay. Well, who else we have here? Joe, who says, we're getting close to retirement. I'm 65. My wife is 60. We're going to talk to a person about retirement planning soon. I'm wondering, what is a reasonable price for a financial plan? Is it better to pay a one-time fee, a percentage of your portfolio, a maintenance fee? We're just learning. We don't want to get taken by not knowing enough information. What's the norm if there's such a thing? Thanks, Joe. Well, look, there's no norm, but there's essentially different ways to do it. I think you need to ask yourself, do you need just a plan? Are you going to execute the plan? Do you feel comfortable investing on your own? Because if you do, then you can pay someone a flat fee for a financial plan. And it's usually based on some combination of how complicated your situation is and how much money you have, how much work there is to do. I've seen plans as cheap as $500, and I've seen them as expensive as $10,000. I think that really does depend on the complexity here. If you are going to be looking at actually having a plan and doing financial management, then, there's everything coalesces around 1% of assets under management. If you've got $1 million to $2 million, even maybe 1.25%, maybe 1%, and the percentage of assets under management would decline as your portfolio gets larger, right? So if you had $10 million, you're not going to pay 1%. So I need a few more details, but Mark, let's send Joe a link to the 10 questions that he must ask before hiring said financial planner. And that will give you a good cheat sheet so you cover what you need. Of course, we want you to work with someone who adheres to the fiduciary standard, who's got to put your best interest first. And you'll see that on the list of 10 questions. That to us is kind of the big, it doesn't guarantee a great relationship, but I think at the very least, it's sort of like saying, I want to hire a doctor who's board certified in certain area, right? You don't want to hire a general practitioner to do your nose job. I never got a nose job. I probably should have. Might have been a much more successful person had I gotten that. You're listening to Jill on Money. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. And our website, jillonmoney.com. Go there, sign up for the newsletter. We'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we would love to hear from you. Our phone number is 855-411-JILL. Our email address, askjill@jillonmoney.com. Okay, this is a note from Cynthia, who writes, about 10 years ago, we had an apartment building that was our retirement income plan. It burned down. Oh, my God. We paid the mortgage off and the capital gains, so it's an empty lot now. And the capital gains. We're planning on selling it this coming year. Will we have to pay capital gains twice? Thank you. I don't quite know what that means. I guess, I see. So you paid capital gains on the apartment building itself, but not, and now because it's an empty lot, will you have, I don't know. That is an interesting question. I think you're going to have to talk to an attorney, a real estate attorney, to find out about that. I'm not sure. It would seem weird to have to pay twice unless they separated out the gain for the building apart from the lot. And I'm not sure how that was treated the first time around. Oh, that's weird. What a weird story. Double check. A real estate attorney, or, of course, you can always talk to, a CPA who would probably know however you handled it last time is probably going to be the basis as to what's going to happen going forward. Wow. It's amazing, right? I always get nervous about people who are basing their retirement on rental property income, but I get, it works. It can work. It always feels a little bit tenuous to me because I'm perpetually worried. That is why, Mark, I'm perpetually worried. I'm just perpetually worried. You know what? It's so weird when Mark, now that you've done all these courses for CFP, you sort of start looking at the downside. That's kind of what your role is. So my role is to help maybe look at the worst case scenario because you don't want to. All right, you are listening to Jill on Money. When we come back, we're going to have lots more of your questions. It's hour number 2 of Jill on Money. We will be right with ya.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's hour number 2 of Jill on Money. Woo! You have to get like a cowbell. More cowbell, Mark. By the way, Mark and I will share what we watch, and you'll hear us talk about that. I just binge watched Behind the Old Ball and Chain's Back. And since there's no shot that there will be a listening of this episode, I binge watched Broadchurch Season 3. So good. It's on Netflix. British series. Kind of needs subtitles sometimes, I swear. Because I think the guy's Welsh. Who's the inspector? But anyway, it's so good. It is. Go back, start watching from the beginning. Broadchurch. All right. What are you watching, Mart? Homeland. It's only one at a time. All right. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to talk to you. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. And you can call us. Mark likes you to email. Let's just do the email now. No, so I shouldn't give the phone number out anymore, or what? He says I can. If you've got the phone in your hand, you might want it. 855-411-JILL. 855-411-JILL. All right, let's go take some calls. That's how we always like to start the hour. It's Aaron in Charlotte. Tell me what's on your mind, how I can help you out.
So I've recently graduated from college, this past December.
Great.
I've landed a job right out of school. So I'm currently making more money than I've ever had before.
I love it.
It's a good problem to have, I guess.
Yep.
And it's a company with really great benefits, and I just kind of wanted to see what your thought was on where I should be putting my money first.
Okay.
What I should be saving for.
All right, so let's start with this. So you're in your 20s, right?
Okay.
Do you have any debt, any student loans?
I have no student loans, thanks to scholarships and mom and dad.
Fantastic. And no credit card or auto loans either?
I have an auto loan.
Okay. And how much is outstanding on that auto loan?
It is, so it's brand new, so I'm 1 month into 60 months, I believe.
Okay.
So like $349 a month.
Okay. And do you know what the interest rate is on the auto loan?
It's pretty good. So my dad was nice and co-signed it for me, 3.4%.
Kind of loving your dad and your mom right now.
Yeah, he is.
This is good stuff. Okay. How much are you making, Aaron?
I'm making $52 a year.
Fantastic. And are you renting your own place, or are you living with mom and dad?
I am renting.
Okay, great. You said you got good benefits at the company. Is there a 401k that's offered through them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And are you contributing to that?
I am, yeah. I'm doing 6%.
Okay.
And then there's also a 6% employer match.
Great. So that's terrific. And what about just some safe money in the bank? What's going on there?
I'm on track to save about $1,000 a month.
Okay. So look, when you start out, this is what I call it like the big three. And for, by the way, anyone listening, whether it's you, yourself, your kid, your niece, your nephew, everyone has to think about this same big three in my mind. Number one is you got to try to pay off any nasty consumer debt. So I mean like double-digit percentage credit cards or big, fat, bad auto loans. This is not a terrible auto loan, so I'm not that concerned. And that's really your number one priority. And of course, if you've got student loans, you're going to have to pay those down as well. The second thing is, I think, an emergency reserve fund of some sort. And how do you figure out how much money you actually need to put away in that emergency reserve fund? I would say it's anywhere between 6 and 12 months of whatever your living expenses are. So that requires you to actually figure out what your living expenses are. But, like Aaron, it's kind of probably easy for you because you don't have that many expenses. Then it is put money away for retirement. And so you're doing a little bit at the same time, which is all good. I like the 6% in the 401k. I think that in the next few months, you're going to have your emergency reserve fund pretty well set. Because I can't. Do you know what your monthly expenses are right now?
Probably around $1,500.
$1,500 a month. Okay, so yeah, I mean that's pretty good. So in the next 6 months, you're going to have that saved up. Once you get to that point, the next choice is, okay, what else do I need to do? So there's a couple of choices. Number one is you can put more money into your 401k. But I think in your case, I have a sense that you're so young and your career is just taking off that maybe what you might want to do is open up a Roth IRA. And once you get that emergency reserve fund saved up, once you got that set, then you take the money you were putting towards the emergency reserve and you open up a Roth IRA. And the Roth is kind of cool. It's a little different than your 401k. You probably know the difference, but I'm just going to say for everyone else's benefit that, 401k, you get a deduction from your taxes now. So if you're going to make $50,000 and you put 10% in, you're not taxed on $50,000. You're taxed on $50,000 minus the $5,000 you put in your retirement plan. So that's why it shrinks your tax bill currently. With a Roth, you take an after-tax dollar, right? You make money and then you get taxed on it and then you put it into a retirement account. But that account is really cool because it grows without taxation for as long as you invest inside of it. And then once you take the money out down the road at 59.5, there's no tax due. So with your 401k, you got to pull the money out and pay tax on it. Roth, you don't. So I think that might be where I would go with sort of my next level of investing. Here's another question for you, Aaron. How are you investing the money inside of the 401k right now?
Inside the 401k, I honestly have not really kept a close eye on it.
All right. I love that you're honest with me. I love that's it's a beautiful thing. We're getting real here. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to go after we get off the phone, I want you to go check the statement and I want you to send me an email and tell me what it is invested in. And then we can figure out whether it's in something that needs, maybe you need to be more aggressive, maybe you need to be less aggressive. I don't know. But I want you to take a look at that because, look, this is your money, okay? And, you're not alone. And there's a lot of people listening here who don't want to like micromanage their entire financial lives. They just want to like they're making good money. They're putting money away. That's great. I just want you to be able to feel comfortable and in control of the money you are putting away. And the first step is pull that statement out, look at what it's invested in, shoot me an email, let me know, and then we can decide whether that's the right investment option for you or whether you need to take more risk, less risk. I mean, you're really young, so risk shouldn't be something you're really terrified of, but I just want you to feel more in control of it, and that way you'll feel more, I think, just generally feel better about your own financial condition. But, I mean, it sounds to me like you're doing all the right things so far, and we just got to get some of that money to work for you when it gets freed up.
That's it.
Okay, we'll get back to the program in just a minute. During the break, go check out JillOnMoney.com and subscribe to our newsletter. It's so much fun. Newsletter, JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
(855-411-JILL). That's the number to call to have your financial questions answered. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back with Jill on Money. How are ya? He's good? He's good? Good. We're doing so well here. So happy. The Jill on Money world is going nuts. So I'm writing a book, which is totally exciting and fabulous, and a lot of it has been formed by my conversations with you and with my former clients, but people call the radio show and send me emails and respond to columns that I write, and it's been kind of a wild experience to do it. The final manuscript being submitted May 1st. So I promise I will give you lots of information about how you can pre-order the book and what you can do. And, you know, don't you worry. I'll let you know. But in advance, I have to thank all of you because I don't think it would necessarily have been possible without doing this radio show to have the wherewithal, because you give us such great feedback and you are very thankful for the things we do. So all I did is I turned the radio show into a book. You'll see. It's kind of cool. All right, first up, this segment, Kelly in Virginia. Tell me what is on your mind and how we might be able to help you out.
Well, I have about $60,000 between my savings account and 3 CDs, and I want to figure out something better to do with it.
Okay, I love this. This is a great problem. Oh, darn it, I have too much money, too much cash. Tell us about yourself. How old are you?
I'm 40.
Okay. Married, single, any kids? What's going on?
I'm single. I have no debt, and I have no kids.
You know what? I noticed that people have no kids and no debt tend to have a lot of savings. Now, I'm not saying making a judgment there. I'm just saying that's it. Okay. How about your job? What do you do for a living?
I work for the state, and I think it's pretty secure. It's a newer job for me, so...
That's great. And do you have a retirement plan through the state, a 457 plan or a 403B?
I have a 403B.
Okay. And how much are you contributing to that, your part of it, not what they put in for you?
About 10%. That's
great. You feeling good about that?
I do.
And your income, ballpark, about how much do you make?
About $76,000 a year.
Okay. So, I mean, two things that just strike me right off the bat, which is, you know, you are saving a bunch of money outside of retirement, but you're not maxing out your retirement plan right now. Is there a reason for that, or is that just, in other words, is there some concept that you're having that you want to have some money that's in tax deferred and non-tax deferred, or is that just you haven't popped up that percentage yet?
Ultimately, I haven't popped it up. The state does match me 8.5%.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and so part of me feels like I don't necessarily need to max it out.
On the other hand, you are accumulating a whole bunch of money in cash. I mean, you're a very good saver. So maybe we would split the difference and say that if you don't want to put money in a 403B, maybe one thing to consider, and again, it may be that like for this minute, you're in a position where you can actually afford to do a lot of different things. But I would love to see you get that percentage up. Frankly, 15% would be good. But let's get back to this issue about the money that's in savings and in CDs, because in many respects, this is obviously money that there is some emergency fund part of this. But what portion of this would you say is available to do something with?
$40,000.
Okay.
I'd like to keep about $20,000.
Okay, good. I mean, look, I love an emergency reserve fund. I really do. And there's a lot of people who think you should just keep everything invested. I'm just too wimpy for that. I like to sleep at night, so I can huddle up to my 0.32% or whatever horrible amount that I'm getting. I mean, you could probably get more out of your savings, but I think that makes a lot of sense.
I hope not to have to use it, but you never know.
Exactly. I know. It's very good to be a nervous Nelly when it comes to these aspects of your financial life. It's really good. And in terms of the retirement account outside, you said this is a fairly new job. Are there other retirement accounts that you have floating around?
Yeah, I have about $260,000 in my retirement.
Oh, that's kind of awesome. Fantastic. And where is that? Is that an old plans, or did you roll that over after you left your old employer?
I rolled it over.
And where is it now? Is it invested in a regular IRA rollover, or did you convert it into a Roth?
A regular.
Okay, got
IRA
it.
Rollover.
And I presume that you are being very clear about keeping your fees low and not mucking around with your portfolio too much, correct?
That's right.
That was a leading question, I think, if you're a lawyer. So I have a couple of ideas about the 40 grand. And you said you're debt free. So, look, for everyone listening, a lot of people will say to me, like, where do I start? I presume that you've got the big three covered, which is you've got your debt paid down, you've got your emergency reserve established, and you're using your retirement account. Again, I wouldn't mind for you, Kelly, to put a little bit more into that retirement account. But you do have $40,000 that's available right now. And there's a couple of things that come to mind. Number one, you can open up a Roth IRA.
I actually do have a Roth, and I max it out every year.
So you're maxing out your Roth, but you're not maxing out your 403B. So then definitely I want you to max out the 403B. I'm going back on my word here. No, okay. I'm going back. I'm just max that out. Get that maxed out. Then we've got 40 grand to start with. And you know what? Are you into investing? Do you like to invest? What's your disposition when it comes to this?
Well, I just feel like I get lost when I read about investing. I just get really lost and can't figure out what the right thing to do is.
Okay, that's and yet, you look at somebody who's in your situation, 40 years old with, over $250,000 saved, and I would say you're not lost, honey. You are found. You have done a great job. You really have. You've done a great job. Look, I think that many people are in your situation. So I'm going to say that you may be kind of a perfect candidate for considering a real passive approach to investing, meaning that would be a big index fund portfolio where the money is you put on autopilot, essentially, pick 3 funds, make it a low-cost index fund, and don't touch it. Or consider using a robo-advisor. I think especially in your case, because this is a non-retirement account, some of the aspects of using a robo that is very concentrated on minimizing tax liability would be helpful to you. Look, it's not the panacea. You're going to have ups, you're going to have downs. But if you say that you're getting lost and you don't kind of like doing it, then that kind of a platform could actually be really good for you. And again, there's lots of different ways to skin the cat. I just suggest it as a possibility. And I also think that for someone in your situation, knowing that the long-term strategy is just a passive nuts and bolts approach where the market's going to do the heavy lifting and you get to have your risk considered is something that could be worthwhile to consider for you.
That is exactly what I want to do.
That is exactly. Put me in. I'm in. Get going. No, it's and I will also just make sure a couple of other things just to round out your big, picture financial stuff. Look, you said you're single. Are you with someone?
Yep, I'm in a relationship.
Okay.
We live together
And have you guys, how long have you been together? Look at this, so personal.
11 years.
Oh, my gosh. Have you guys done wills?
No.
So, this is kind of this weird thing because if you're not married, the law doesn't actually protect you when it comes to estate planning. Mm-hmm. So one thing I would consider, I can burn up this cash in like 2 minutes, right, is to maybe go think about drafting a will and a durable power of attorney and a healthcare proxy. Not because I think anything bad is going to happen, but I think that that's a really smart thing for you to do, especially when you are not married, because there is no legal structure that will protect your honey if something happened to you and vice versa.
Sure.
All right? So go forth, do some estate planning, max out your retirement plan, keep maxing out your Roth, and get your money to work. How's that?
Sounds great.
Thank you so much for calling, Kelly. Really appreciate it. Okay, we'll get back to more of your calls and emails. Lots of ways to contact us. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. You can call us, 855-411-JILL. You can tweet at us, at JillOnMoney. We'll be right back.
Wondering how to make your money work for you? Get on the line now, 855-411-JILL. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we may have an answer. We don't always, but we may. We may. 855-411-JILL is our phone number. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Oh, I'm so hungry, Mark. That Greek yogurt thing, just not enough to tie me over. I'm going to eat my arm. I'm starving also. Where are the nuts? Sometimes Mark's got this big... What happened? You used to come with a big bag of nuts every single time we did our recordings. You've really fallen down on the job. Or you feel like you can't buy nuts because you have to furnish your new apartment. I'm not a pistachio fan. Too much work. I'm a big almond cashew fan. When sometimes we have this, I read this article about what's called mindless eating, which is absolutely what I do. I sit at a bar, I order a drink, they put a pile of nuts in front of me, and I could just easily eat like 12 containers worth. But I turned it into mindless spending. That's something I don't do. I don't do mindless spending, but I don't know. When it comes to sitting at that bar and nursing my amber beverage of choice, although we are coming into the springtime and summer, so I'm going to shifting off of the amber into the gins. I am a seasonal drinker. It's true. All right. Jill on Money is where you are right now. We'll stop talking about nonsense and go and take a financial question from Marilyn in New York. Excellent. I finally have a New Yorker on the phone, so my accent sounds exactly the same as yours. So we're in it together.
Okay.
What's going on? How can I help you?
Great. I am having difficulty trying to figure out a good, reputable financial planner to meet with that doesn't seem to be selling a product.
That's a tough one. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're looking for specifically.
Okay. I'm 64. My husband's 66, and the plan is to work for 2 more years. And we have money all over the place from this 401k, another all over.
Mm-hmm.
And we have some mutual funds, and I just want to make sure that it's all allocated correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like when I speak to someone who sells their own product, they're biased. So I don't mind paying for a review of all our assets, but I want to know the right direction to go in.
Do you think you want one time, take a look at my retirement assets but you want to manage the money yourself? In other words, do you feel like you're happy to manage the money yourself, but you need a reality check?
Correct.
Okay, that's really so. First of all, Thank you for airing this, because I think there are tons and tons of people just like you. And the problem is, as you say, you meet somebody out there who says, oh, of course, I'm happy to give you a review of your retirement plan, Marilyn. And then all of a sudden you're looking at a variable annuity product that you don't need. So, and I'm sure you've heard that pitch before.
No, so I'm not sure if we're in the right things, the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
We have hopefully 2 more years to work, and we can hopefully save a little more.
Mm-hmm.
But, we have a considerable amount put away. But I just want to make sure that we are doing this all correctly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that makes perfect sense. Now, have you heard this weirdo legal term called fiduciary?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to say for everybody, I'm going to just drop this F-bomb on this show week after week, because we're going to talk about fiduciary, because this is kind of what Marilyn's saying. Like, I want to know that when I talk to an advisor or anyone in the financial services industry, that person's putting my interest first, not the sale of a product. And so if you say to somebody, you start by saying, are you a fiduciary? That's a good place to start. Now, there are a lot of folks who are fiduciaries. They don't have, so a CFP, a certified financial planner, is a fiduciary. Okay. But that does not mean that person is precluded from selling you product. I'm just telling you that they are fiduciaries. Then there is also a CFA. Those are like the analytical types. There are plenty of people who have a designation that's called they're CPAs, but they're also personal financial specialists. So it's a CPA-PFS. Those are kind of interesting folks. And at the end of the day, what I think you are looking for is something called a fee-only financial planner. And what does this person do? This person does exactly what you say. You say, give me the price. Let me just know what this cost is for this one-time endeavor. Draw up a plan, look at my asset allocation, give me my marching orders, and let me manage the money myself. That type of person, that fee-only planner, you can find through a website, NAPFA, NAPFA.org. The National NAPFA.org. Okay, now here's the deal. They're not so easy to find, but you're in New York. You're lucky because there are more in New York. NAPFA advisors do not take commissions at all, and they are fiduciaries. And they tend to do things like hourly planning, or they'll do a project. Like, I don't know how much money you have, but let's just, if you have $1 million, they might say to you, here, we're going to do a full-blown, crazy analysis of everything. It's $5,000. But that's how, if you've got a lot of money and it's a one-time fee and you know it's unbiased and they're not going to try to sell you anything,
right,
it could be well worth your time.
Right.
So if you go to napfa.org and you say, where's a fee-only advisor near me, that will shoot out some ideas for you. And you know what? I think that what's really helpful for you is that you know what you want. So be clear.
I think I know what I want.
Well, look, here's a good thing. Let's say you go through the process, okay? And then you decide 2, 3, 5 years from now, you say, I don't want to manage the money myself anymore. You have a relationship with somebody. You can go back and say, either you can manage the money or someone else can manage the money. So it's a great idea. Again, if you have enough money, it can make sense to pay a big chunk for that kind of service.
Yeah, I think, it's something that we need to do.
We will get back to your questions in just a minute. Have you missed any of our previous programs? Go to JillOnMoney.com and click on the Listen tab. There you will also be able to subscribe to our podcast. Wouldn't that be fun? It's called Better Off. Go check it out at JillOnMoney.com. We will be right back.
Have a finance question? There are many ways to reach the show. You can call anytime at 855-411-JILL, send an email to askjill@jillonmoney.com, or tweet a question on Twitter using the handle @JillOnMoney. Just use the hashtag AskJill.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. That's what James did. James is 72. He says, I am still working and contributing to a TSA, thrift savings account. Do I have to do an RMD? I was told I didn't until I retire from working. I haven't seen that in writing, and I'm afraid I could be doing the wrong thing. Hey, wait a second. This is actually one of my favorite questions because, first of all, you're still working and you're over the age of 70. So remember, for most people who are retired, the deal is that you have to start taking money out of your retirement account after the age of 70 and a half. But what if you're still working? So here's the deal. If you are actually using your retirement plan where you work, and if the plan allows, you don't have to take an RMD. Isn't that the best? It's another reason to keep working. So, by the way, this is a workplace plan, like an employer plan. If the plan is a SEP or a simple or an IRA, you do have to take it. So we're really talking about 401k, 403b, those are the kinds that we're talking about. So you're doing the right thing. Double check, but James, I think this is just fine. Well done. So good. Okay. Someone wrote such a nice thing about the column that I wrote about Warren Buffett's annual letter. Very nice. Steve from Williamsburg, Virginia, who said, is great logic, basic advice. Thank you. He says, so much for the get rich quick crowd. Keep up the fine work. Oh, wish I had that on tape. That's a good promo there, man. Mark. Why don't you get these people on the radio? We can just run that. Okay, so we also got a question from Craig about an RMD, and he's asking about whether he has to, he's 75 years old, he's an independent contractor, and he says, same question about the RMD, but I don't know. It really depends on what you are. Do you have a workplace plan? That's what you have to ask yourself. If it's not a workplace plan, if it's just your own personal IRA, your individual retirement account, then it doesn't work. All right. Let's see. I'm blowing through these emails. Christina writes, she's a nurse. The organization where I work is in the middle of a merger/acquisition. I am currently with Vanguard for my 401k and profit sharing, but after the merger is complete, we have the option to roll it into another financial company called Voya. I don't know what to do. I've done some research. They don't seem to have high ratings. I'd like to have the option to borrow from my 401k from time to time, so I'm confused. All right. Well, why do you need why do you need to be borrowing from your 401k? That's number one. Number two, if you are, Voya is essentially a spinoff. Remember ING, which was a big company? So ING spun off its insurance services and rebranded itself as Voya a couple of years ago. And so chances are what you're going to be investing in, what you're asking about, is probably an annuity. So what I think you should do is you should keep your plan with Vanguard, but you wouldn't be able to borrow from it. So if you really think you're going to need to borrow from it, you're going to have to roll over enough of the money into the Voya plan that would give you enough of the squish room. But because I don't really know how much money we're really talking about, I don't know if you have $500,000 in your plan. And so without knowing details, what I guess I can tell you is this. I don't like the fact that you're relying on your plan to borrow, because it tells me something else is going on in your life where you're needing money and you don't have it, and that's not good. But you are wise enough to realize that Voya is not as good as Vanguard, so I would stick to Vanguard. And I wouldn't go nutty with it. I would keep it there and not roll it over. Now, If you're talking about brand new and you're participating, you may actually want to participate in the Voya plan and maybe use the least objectionable items in that plan, usually an index fund. And maybe what you do is if you have a match, maybe you contribute up to the match and then just open a Roth IRA for yourself. But I need more details. Come on the show and play with us. I need a little more information. But I do love the questions about still working in your 70s and RMDs. That to me is the best news. Okay, so if you have a financial question and you want to get on the air with us, just let us know. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. And if you've missed some episodes in the past, we encourage you to hop onto the website, JillOnMoney.com, because there Mark has done a good job of archiving a whole bunch of shows. Not every show. How much is on there? A lot? Couple years? All right. So check it out, JillOnMoney.com. Just click on the Listen tab. And you can also subscribe to our podcast, Better Off there. Do it. Do it now. All right. More of your questions right before we end the show. We'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. And before we close out the show, I want to address a question from Patrick in Rhode Island, who heard me talk about the part of your investment planning if you worked for a company that uses, or an institution, I should say, that uses TIAA-CREF. And I had recommended that TIAA, which is the annuity part of the plan, because they have had a very good, I should say, reputation. So Patrick writes that he had read about a problem that TIAA had. This is at the end of last year. There was an article in the New York Times by the very excellent Tara Siegel Bernard. And what happened was there was a whistleblower who came out and said, hey, TIAA, with all of its sterling practices and great reputation, maybe it's not so great. There are legal filings, a whistleblower complaint saying that the salespeople would promote its own products and services to generate higher fees, and that advisors have been told to exploit customer fears. And so I guess what I would say about that is it wouldn't prevent me from using TIAA. One of the things that is important is to understand that, an annuity choice is indeed it's a promise, right? And so it's only as good as the company. But I don't think the company is essentially going to be, blown out of business for sure. But I think that what's important is that that you realize the TIAA side is an illiquid, and yes, it's higher interest bearing, but I don't know if this particular instance would stop me from using TIAA. That's what I would say. If you're feeling a little weird about it, then just don't use it. But I'm not giving it a thumbs down just yet. Mark, get Ferguson in the studio. He runs TIAA. Roger Ferguson, we'd love to see him. All right. This has been a great show. All about you, all about your questions. If you would like to come on the air with us live, just send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks to Mark for producing. And see you in May.